Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. A few years ago, I did a couple of videos on Robert S. Conley, and for those of you who don't know who he is, I'm pretty sure the majority of you do. He's an old school campaign expert, especially about the Sandbox campaign. He has his own. I did a video on his own game, the Majestic Fantasy RPG, which is an OSR Dungeons and Dragons clone. Trims away the fat, gets the meat and bones, expands on what's important, and I really think you should actually check it out if you haven't done so already and gotten his work. But today I'm talking to you about his newest creation, which I think you're really going to enjoy. Today I'm going to be going over with you why you should be using The Northern Marches from Bat in the Attic Games by Robert S. Conley, now on Kickstarter. The Northern Marches expands on his platinum-selling Black Marsh campaign. The Black Marsh campaign had 20,000 downloads when he gave it away for free, and yet it still became a platinum seller. That tells me that people wanted the actually either just thank him for a great setting, but they also said, I want the physical copy to put on my shelf. I can definitely say, I've done the video on, the Majestic Fantasy RPG. I've actually got to cover this someday. The Father's Day sale for ColumbiaGames.com, where you get all the Hardroll RPGs PDFs for 30% off, is still going on now, but it ends Friday. 30% off. Take advantage of it while you can. What I really like about Rob Conley's work is he always keeps the game master in mind, okay? It's one thing to make a setting and just say, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. He's going across and putting the extra emphasis on what are you going to do with the campaign. Now, some people might run his campaign straight, but he lets you have room to grow. There's over 100,000 words in the project. However, on the map, you would think that there's a lot of information, and it is, but on the map, the locales are separated far enough from each other that it's easy to put your own stuff in and not feel crowded or convoluted. They're far enough where you could say, okay, it makes sense for this to be somewhat in this area, even though this is so nearby, otherwise if it's too close, they'd clash and it wouldn't make any sense for them to be there. So this is really exciting. Now, speaking of exciting, now we get to the Creative Commons license. He's listed this as a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 license. This means you can make something based on this, and you can share it, or you can even make a commercial project out of it. That's pretty big news in a lot of ways, man. I know that seems to be a thing. Old school Essentials did that. There's a lot of them that do that now. But it's really nice the fact that he does this just as more proof he's thinking of you, the game master, respecting your creative vision for you to share it unfettered. So the Living World Sandbox idea is actually quite exciting. Now, the idea is here that, there are web factions and key figures with their own motivations, right? But most games, they only do things when your characters are directly involved with them, right? But in here, it's kind of assuming to me that he's saying things can still happen off screen. He doesn't dictate a story. Instead, he says basically he offers a world that reveals itself as the characters explore, investigate, or even interfere. So things can happen, sure, they can happen on screen, but off screen, things can still happen. The machinations are still playing out. People have agendas, and whether the characters are there or not, the parts are still moving. This reminds me, I hope I got this right. I think I do. This reminds me of the Legends of Anglair, which is, based off the Star Blazer science fiction comic series. This is one of the planets in that science fiction series they just kind of expanded on, which is the fantasy portion of it. But anyway, they had all these factions as well. Each city has their own stats, and whether it be mercantile, military, or whatever. And then things can happen like, okay, these guys are at war with these guys. Every month or so, you just roll to see how that war is going, while the players may be in a totally different part. So when they come back, if at all, these things could still affect them, or even these things might affect them down here. I guess it all depends on how it plays out. But anyway, I really want to see what Robert S. Conley does with this idea. The Northern Marches also expands on another platinum-selling book by Rob Conley, that is How to Make a Fantasy Sandbox, and expands on the travel rules and encounter system specifically for the Northern Marches, everything from overland journeys, caravan travel, sea voyages, and adventuring in the underwater realms. So there's a lot more going on here in this 200-page guidebook. Okay, so here are some of the rewards that are pretty exciting. First off, with 100,000 words plus, it's not a surprise this is a 200-page guidebook to the Northern Marches. No small thing whatsoever. And if you already own Black Marsh, he's going to give you a revised layout of the book. So he's prettied it up in some cases, or moved things around, maybe in easier to read places. I'm not sure how that is. Maybe it's because of the other How to Build a Fantasy Sandbox, and this supplement has changed maybe a few things in there, so it's going to have a nice layout. I don't know what that exactly all entails, but that's actually quite nice. But here's a really good thing. Game masters love maps. We all know that. And I already talked about how he worries about, putting things far enough so you can put your own stuff in. But the number of maps you get into this they're the same maps in a way, but they're different. Now, there's 4 12 by 18 maps covering the Northern Marches. One set for the referee and one set for the players. Obviously, there are places like ruins and stuff that the players can't find unless they stumble into them. So there's game master information there. That's pretty standard. But what I also think is cool, that he's also made 2 12 by 18 maps that combine all 4 of the above in a single map at a smaller hex size. Now, that might be useful for other games like the Fantasy Trip, where they use a different scale. Like, I believe the Duchy scale is 5 miles a hex, and then there's another one that's 10 miles a hex. So that would be good to do a little bit more refinement there. But then he also gives you 2 12 by 18 maps that span the middle of the Northern Marches, where all the 4 maps join together. So you get this big thing after it's all said and done. So really exciting there. I definitely think if you're a map lover, you're going to enjoy this because he does the cartography himself. So one thing I really like about what Rob's saying under the risk and challenges part is he kind of takes after me a little bit when it comes to the Kickstarters. My Kickstarters, people usually get them 30 days after the Kickstarter ends because I have my projects well in the bag before I even get the Kickstarter going, right? It's easy enough for me to do. Now, Rob normally funds his artwork and editing through his month-to-month revenue at Bat in the Attic Games. However, as we can understand, 100,000 word plus 200-page monolith of a project is a little bit bigger than he's used to. So he's getting a little bit more overhead, so that's why he's doing the Kickstarter. Quite honestly, I think he should do the Kickstarter anyway. When it gets to a new project, just good for the extra eyeballs and getting new people. But the thing is, and this is the key part here that he says in the third paragraph here under risks and challenges, all writing for this project is complete. This includes not just the guidebook, but the maps as well. So yeah, he still has some editing maybe to do, but it won't be anything major. So it's already in the bag, but he just wants to hedge his bets and say, look, delays could occur with artwork or whatever and stuff, but generally this is ready to go. Guys, there's only about a couple of, there's like maybe 2 days left of this Kickstarter. Jump on it now. Go over to Kickstarter at the link down below. Download Black Marsh for free on a PDF. That's also down below. I didn't mention that, did I? You want to see his work? Download Black Marsh right now. Go to the Kickstarter and pledge for the Northern Marches. And I'll see you next video.